everybody. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for joining us tonight. And I know for some of our East Coast friends and even our guests tonight, it's late. So thank you for participating in our August virtual book club. But I am super excited to have author S D McKoy here with us to discuss her book, Out of the Box, Underbridge County. And if you know me in real life, you've listened to me for several months now talking about this book. so I am super stoked to have her here, and we have the opportunity, to ask questions. Some of you sent your questions ahead of time, so thank you for that. But listen, even if you didn't have a chance to read the book yet, I have no doubt that you will be intrigued by both this writer and her stories. The characters and just the story that she weaves is so relatable because her characters, they're just like the rest of us, not always perfect, an utter mess at times, and a beacon of hope at other times, right? And that helps, us connect to that character because they're just like regular everyday people, right? So Ms. McKoy's bio says she writes about small towns and small town people. But rather than painting everything with a happy little paintbrush, she prefers broad strokes of dark clouds. Those picturesque hills and valleys can host a multitude of sins, and she says that she loves to explore them all. So she wants you to, as she puts it, come meet the hillbillies, townies, trailer trash, pill poppers, wife beaters, drug dealers, and criminals of Underbridge County. So Ms. McKoy, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me and for enjoying my book.
Yes, absolutely. I really did enjoy the book, and we'll talk about that tonight. But I really did both of the books. She has two, but we're just going to talk about the first one tonight. But if you would tell the audience a little bit about yourself, I don't want to steal your thunder, so I'll let you tell them a little bit about yourself.
I was originally from a small town, but I was also an Army brat, so I've moved all over. I keep saying My husband and I live in Central Virginia right now. I was a boy mom, and now I'm a boy meemaw. There are four grandsons, and two of them are living with us at the moment. So I have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old here. Their grandpa is keeping them quiet at the moment.
Aww.
And for the most part, I've always written, whether I'm just scribbling on a page or whatever. I spent several years doing freelance writing and writing web content, but I've just always wanted to get a book out.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally sat down and did that with this first one, Out of the Box. Underbridge County is fictional, but it's all based on places I've been or seen or heard of. And the characters just built themselves basically once I started a story. And I think I wrote Out of the Box all together once I sat down to write. It probably took me about 3 weeks, start to finish. Just the writing. Then there was all the editing and all that. And anyone who's reading it, all the typos are all on me. I know there are still some in there.
Well, listen, you did a fabulous job with that story. So the characters, you mentioned the characters. Tell us a little bit about the cast that we're going to meet in Out of the Box.
Okay. You asked me that and my mind just went completely blank.
Well, I tell you what, tell us about Adara.
All right. Adara she's spunky. She's beautiful, but she's been through a whole lot. And in the story, you see her grow, but it's through her own memories and different things that pop up. And you learn how she became the woman that she is. She's an open book, basically, if anybody were to ask or look. it's all there. But it's also under wraps because a lot of people don't know about the whole situation that she's gone through to get to where she is.
Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed how each chapter was from a different character's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's different. You don't usually see people
No,
write
you
like that.
don't. And I've actually had a lot of people, through the years, writers, authors, everything, say that people have an issue with that, as well as stuff being based on letters or a journal. But when you have that many people and that many stories intertwined, I think that's a good way to get everything out there and show how it's all linked.
Oh yeah, I definitely think that's an excellent way. When I was reading, I read chapter 1, and then when I got to the next chapter, I said, "Oh wait, this is somebody else's perspective." Okay, I was like, "Yeah," because what are you thinking, guy? I want to know what's on your mind. So yeah, I thought that was an excellent way um, to allow us to really get into the head of each character.
Right.
And what about that husband of hers? Like, you asked the question in the or you talk about in the beginning, like nobody knows where it all went wrong with him. Where did it all go wrong with him?
He was born that way. He was just born bad. There's as I have book 3 in progress. It's been a couple of years since I've done anything with it. It's just sitting. But that story does have the history of how Danny became what he is. But basically, from the beginning, he was just a handful. And his mother ran off, left him with his drunk daddy and his brother. And, they say what you live with, what you see, you either are that or you go to the opposite of that. Mm-hmm. His brother is a very upstanding citizen, all that stuff. And Danny's just a lost cause.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was definitely a lost cause. He was certainly a lost cause. And I don't want to spoil it for the ones who haven't read the book yet, but you get out there and read that book.
Yeah, that's going to be hard to do, to talk about it without telling the big stuff.
And so talk to us about, the two brothers and how, really, I guess how they kind of helped shape Adara's life in a way and gave her some comfort.
Yeah, I see them as being, they encountered her when she was young, before she had been through any major drama or anything that was going to mess her up. And so they're always like this pure beacon for her, even when she thinks there is no hope in her life at all. Mm-hmm. And when the stuff happens in the book that brings them back into her life, it's like finding herself again, the person she used to be before everything. And I see Lane as being her definite, absolute love of her life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the brother is just, he's family too, even without having been around for all those years or anything. Excuse me. He's Doug he's fun. He's a comedian, but he also really loves his brother, and he loves Adara and wants them to be happy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was very clear, and it's the little things that make a story great. And you had so many small details in there that just really helped weave that story together. Yeah, and so that was great. I wanted to make a comment about the second book, but we won't talk about that. Read the first book first, y'all. Read the first book. So let me ask you this, though. Talk to us about your writing process. Like, did you have to kind of get in the mood to write about these characters? Did you have music going?
Oh yes. There's a whole playlist that I have on YouTube. It's linked in the back of the book, I believe. But I had written Oh my goodness, excuse me. I had a couple of different passages that I had written down because I just jot notes and write stuff down
Mm-hmm.
and then go back and look through it. And I had been playing with the character of Adara for a while. And as I sat down, I'm not a, they say when you're writing, there are different people. There are plotters who plot every little detail and get everything in order. And then there are pantsers who just do it by the seat of their pants. That's me. I'm a pantser.
Okay.
I sit down, I write, and basically just whatever comes out is what's there. I let it all flow, and then I go back and try to tie
Mm-hmm.
things together and make sure that it has a flow to it. Once I started on this one, when I sat down with the notes that I had, and I did have basic character outlines for them,
Mm-hmm.
and I had written the first part of it, the story about where they all meet. And from there, I had to figure out how to get it to when she's in her 40s, but still
Yeah.
tell that old story at the same time. So I just sat down and went with it. I had a playlist of mostly country music. That's
Mm-hmm.
not all I listened to. That just fit with that story.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a laptop and a recliner, and I sat and I wrote.
Yeah. That's kind of how I write too. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
except I'm the plotter though. I
Oh,
plot everything out and then I sit down and go. But you know what? Whatever gets that story out of your head. I tell my
exactly.
students, you have to get it out of your head before you can correct it or,
Yeah, you can't do
polish it
anything
up.
with it if it's just flying around in your head, keeping
Yeah,
you
you
up
can't.
at night.
Exactly, because it will. We all know it will.
Mhm.
Those stories will keep us up.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
as I read this, I said, oh, this would be a great movie. Have you ever thought about writing
You're
a
not the
script for it?
only one who has said that, actually. One of my
Mm-hmm.
mother's friends just read it recently, and she messaged, she was like, oh, this needs to be a movie. I was like, well,
Yes.
yay, but
So Lifetime, if you're listening, no, but I think this is more than just a Lifetime movie. This would, because I felt like your book it delves into just human character and relationships. So so well. And like I said, the little things you did so well, like when, just them, Adara sitting outside by the water, soaking up the sun and, just the little things
yeah,
that she would do, but that humanized her and really
right.
helped us connect to her. Her nickname Trouble. Like
Mhm.
who can't relate to it? We all have a trouble in our life somewhere, right?
Right.
So yeah, definitely. I think the little things. If you did turn it into a movie, have you ever given any thought to who might play some of your characters? Like who
No,
you'd want to play them?
nope, I can't do it because when I read, I picture the people in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I go and watch a movie, they're never the same and it makes me mad.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, I prefer my imagination on it. I have not been able to think of anyone I would want to play them.
And you know what? And reading it, I have such vivid imagery of those characters in my head. I think you're right. Maybe a movie
Yeah,
would spoil it.
it
I
probably
can
would.
definitely see each of them, even Danny and all his facial expressions and just
Yeah.
all of that. I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. How cool. Yeah. So somebody wants to know. So, okay, I guess, okay, no, he didn't read the book. So, this is Ray actually from Dallas, Texas. He said, unfortunately, I just got the book and didn't have a chance to finish it yet, but please allow me to ask a question. As far as character development, what made you come to the conclusion of the book that you did? And did you ever consider a different ending to the story? I've heard so much about it, and that's probably for me. So,
I, as I said, I'm just a pantser. I sit down and I write. And the characters do what they want to do.
mm-hmm.
I had a general idea, but I really did not know how I was going to end it.
Yeah.
And in the end, I was kind of shocked myself at how it all went down.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had, a couple people say, "Oh, I can't believe you did that. That ruined it for the next book and this and that."
I
But
assure you, it did not.
but I felt like that was the ending to that story, and that was
Mm-hmm.
just where the characters led me. I didn't plan it.
Yeah, as they live their life in their universe. And I agree. And I told you this before. I wrote a similar book 12, 13 years ago. Um, and it's called, like, because I have a series of books about different women. And this particular book was about Lara. So Lara, hope is a dangerous thing. And when I started the book, I envisioned she would be triumphant and, standing on top of the world. But when the book ended, I killed her.
I killed
she
her.
was she was trying to save her son's life because, and then she died. She got hit by an ambulance, and people said, "I can't believe you did that. Why would you do that?"
Right.
Because that's where she led me. That's where the characters led me to. So I do understand that. And I think more often than not, that's exactly what happens. The characters lead us, and we follow. As the writer, we just kind of follow and tell their story. But the character is the one that's leading us.
Yeah, and you have to try to stay true to their storyline, their personality, their behaviors, instead of inflicting what you would do in that situation.
Right.
You have to go with the character.
Absolutely, because most of my characters, probably like yours, listen, they don't act like I do because they're them and I am me. Right. We are different. Yeah, we are different. We are absolutely different. Yeah. Jennifer out of El Paso, Texas wants to know, what character did you most relate to while you were writing and why?
In a lot of ways, I have to say Adara. Because, we all have that main character syndrome as writers.
Yeah.
But, she, with her, I drew a lot on some of my personal experiences through life, as well as, if you read the author's note, I actually met someone the same way she met Lane when teenager. And we dated, then we became really good friends. And I just thought that was a really neat way to meet someone and wanted to make sure that was preserved. So that's in the story. But once I got that part down, that was where my real link with Adara ended. I didn't want to make it about me and my life. Right. But I have to say, out of all the characters, she's the one that is closest to my heart.
Okay. So Isabel wants to know, what scene do you think was the most pivotal moment in the story, and how did it make you feel when you wrote it? Oh, that's an interesting question. There's so many, Isabel.
There are two that stick out. The first one is Danny and after the wedding and what he did there. I felt like that was like the no coming back moment. But then
we knew he was evil.
Yeah, but you didn't know just how bad. Right.
You know what? In that moment, because for a while, in the beginning of the book, how it starts off, hey, there was one time back in 2018 when our small town made the news, right? I didn't really know who that was, whose perspective. But after that wedding, I said, oh, it was you. Okay.
Yeah. Yep, after the wedding. And then I guess the other one that I don't even know if it was pivotal, but to me, it sticks out in my mind. It was when she was first moving into the house with the two brothers. And the younger one took her outside and spanked her because she was teasing him about them having sex in his room.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Mm-hmm.
giggled at that. That just cracked me up. I thought that was hilarious. And I could see that as being a bonding moment, like tying them
Yes.
together in a more permanent family type way.
Mm-hmm. I picked up on that too, and I felt like, oh, they're interacting like siblings for real. So, mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, all right. Irene wants to know, um, what motivated you to write this particular story in this particular setting?
I've always been interested in the rural noir books, dark stories. Yeah, I like murder mysteries and stuff like that, but I wanted to get something more into how people are and why people are rather than, oh, there's a dead body, let's see what happened. And being from a small town and stumbling across a couple of writers, I cannot think of I could think of the character, but not the author right now. But wrote a book called My Brother's. It's gone, completely gone. The character's name is Bear, Baer, but it's a very country one, very southern, and it's about revenge and brothers and stuff like that. And after I read that, I was like, wow, there is a little niche that my writing would fit in.
Mm-hmm.
So I started working on some of my stories, and that's just kind of always been my style when I write fiction. And so it was easy to develop Underbridge County in my mind and start working from there.
All right. So Ryan says, we know that Underbridge County is fictional, but is it actually set in the United States? And if so, more or less, what part of the country would you say?
More or less, you're looking at southwestern Virginia.
Okay.
If you look at Virginia, it has this little point that comes down between West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and North Carolina. It's in that area.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah. So, all right. Clarissa wants to know, as the writer, what was your favorite chapter and why?
Oh my. I have to say, as disturbing as it is, I really did like the end. But
I did too.
But throughout it, I would have to say probably the Christmas party was a big favorite for me.
Okay. The Christmas party, they were both nice. At the
Mhm.
Christmas party, you made me cry just a little bit because I was like, oh. And but at the ending, I was like, you go, girl. And so I was like, yes, yes.
Yeah,
But
it's
then
about time.
uh-huh. I was like, you found your voice. Yes,
Yep.
yes. Do not sit back and take it. All right, let me see this one. Okay, so Jerica, and if I mispronounce your name, I'm so sorry, Jerica. But Jerica says, how do the characters see themselves? Do they see themselves? Wait a minute. Do they see themselves as hillbillies, criminals, et cetera, or do they see themselves as something else?
I have to say, I think that in Underbridge County, that's probably how they would describe themselves as well. Everybody would see, I mean, some of them may not think they're hillbillies, or they may not think they're pill poppers or junkies, or admit that they're wife beaters, but I think they all would see what they are. Yeah.
Okay, so, all right. So Glenda says, I was intrigued by the power dynamics between the characters. Did you have to do any research on that, or did it just come naturally?
That story just flowed.
Yeah, and and it read like it just flowed too. Like you can tell it just It just flowed. So for those of you who
Yeah,
haven't read the book,
that
know that it just flowed.
yeah, that one just flowed. Now, when I got to the second one, I did do a lot of research because it has a little bit of history in it. But the first one, nope. It was just a story.
Okay. All right. So Rose said, what on earth motivated Adara to continue to live in hell when she could have run away and been in heaven all those years?
Well, Adara didn't think that heaven wanted her
Yeah.
because Lane had broken up with her. And then she felt like she was trapped because there was a child involved. And even though she had the ability to be independent financially, once he had her under his thumb like that, she didn't feel like she could go anywhere or do anything.
You know, and I think that's highly relatable too, because, you know, as moms, as women, we often go through, you know, who hasn't been through that
Right.
in some form or fashion. You know, it might be to a different degree or something.
Right.
But
I mean, no, there's very few that are as bad as Danny, but
yeah,
they're out there.
they
But
are.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of women go through that situation. And
Mhm.
it could be as small as verbal abuse or it could be actual physical abuse. But once
Mhm.
you get in that situation, a lot of times with your children or whatever else is going on, you know, financially, all that, you're stuck or you feel stuck, whether you are or
Feel
not.
stuck. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm. You know, and we make decisions based on the impact on our children. You know,
Mhm.
that's just reality. So I could, when I was reading through that, I simply, like, my heart broke for her so much because, yeah, I understood that place that she was in, where she was coming from, what, you know, kind of what she was thinking. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was a good one. And so this is from Ryan again. So now this is probably going to be a little spoiler if you haven't read the book, but I think most of you have read the book. Um, but he said, what on earth got into Danny that he decided to follow through with a promise to murder his child?
It was a promise.
It was a promise. He kept his promise.
Out of everything he had done, no matter what, along the way, he did exactly what he said he would do.
Mm-hmm. You know,
From the beginning.
as I read that too, I said, "Oh, he's one of those like black and white, really off his rocker kind of people."
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I said this and that, you violated it, so this thing over here must happen. I don't
Yep.
care if it's my daughter, but
Right. I told you what I would do. Yeah.
and he did it. You know, and interestingly, as I read that part too, I also understood, like, it made me just want to reach out and hug Adara even more. It made
Yeah.
me have even more compassion, because how many people have gotten in relationships like that, you know? You just, you don't know. You
Yeah.
have no idea. So and I think, and that was the thing throughout the book, either my heart was breaking, or I was really angry, or I was really happy, but I was always in my emotions with that book.
Right.
And
Well,
every step of the way.
no, yeah. I was like, while I was writing it, I would write scenes, tears streaming down my face, and then I'd be giggling. You know,
Uh-huh.
I just
And
rolled
that's
with what the characters told me. So,
right. And that's why I think it was great that, like, every chapter was a different character's perspective,
mhm.
because I think that helps to keep the reader in their emotions. Like, it just,
Right.
you know, we just move so fast from one emotion to the other. It's just like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next?
Right.
Because I don't know about the rest of y'all, but for me, I got the book, I read a couple of pages, I had to go to work. But by the time I finished the first chapter, I was like, okay, no sleep tonight. I'm going to sit up. And then I was mad because I stayed up until my eyes just wouldn't, you know, stay open anymore. And I had, like, I don't know, like 20 or 30 pages left. And I said, okay, I'm going to read this first thing in the morning. Like, I was just glued to it. And
And you
and
notice those 20 or 30 pages were the big stuff. So.
the big stuff. And then hold on, because actually when I got to the big stuff in the end, I actually like let a scream out, and my son said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "You wouldn't believe what this writer has going on in this book right now." And I said, "But it's going to be good. It's going to be good because, this it's going to be good. This girl's not going to stand for it." And then lo and behold, all the other stuff happened. And,
Mhm.
when it, listen, and that truck. So where I live in the desert Southwest in El Paso, Texas, right? We're
Mhm.
surrounded by there's mountains in the middle of town. Not as much mountain area as in Underbridge County, but
Right.
we've got the mountains, we've got the cliff, we have all of that. So all I can see now that when I drive past the Franklin Mountains, I picture, and I don't know why, but I picture a Dodge Ram 1500, probably because that's what I own, going off the
Mhm.
cliff with it there, and the music. I can hear the music. I can
Yep.
hear everything. Like, it's just so vivid. But yeah, I want you to know I was having a fit when that was happening. And I'd read a couple sentences, and then I'd have to call my son and give him play by play, like what was happening. So yes, those last pages, that's definitely where the big stuff
Yeah.
was happening. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. um so right here, Ileana, Ileana wants to know, what would you say the theme or message of your story is?
Wow.
That is that's a big intellectual, deep question there.
It is. And I mean, honestly, I didn't set out to write it with some big theme or
Yeah.
message, but I would have to say for women
Mm-hmm.
to stand up for yourselves,
Mm-hmm.
to take care of yourselves, and don't let someone put you in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. I would wholeheartedly say that's
Yeah.
the theme. Um,
And life is short, so be happy.
mhm. Yeah, life is short. And I know when you're young, you don't realize it always, but absolutely, absolutely. And we kind of see that a little bit in the second book. I said I wasn't going to talk about the second book too much, but tell us, listen, because you can't just talk about the first book without finding out something about the second book. So, um, so tell us a little bit. So spoiler, we already talked about she killed everybody in this first book, but did she? So who's the cast of characters in the second book?
Okay, in the second book, you have a trio that were all born on the same day in Underbridge County and have grown up together. And there's a really bad preacher.
Oh, he's
And
bad. He's
he
beyond
is
bad.
bad. And there are some little criminal hoods that run around making meth. And and there's some dead girls popping up here and there. I'm trying not to give much
That,
away,
that
but
murder mystery. Yeah, we want
yeah,
you to read the book. You got to go get
yeah,
the book.
there is a little mystery in this one. It's not quite as openly violent, I would say,
Right.
but it's a whole different cast of people, but they're all in the same place
And
and the
there's also
same
some
mindset.
connection. There's some
Yes, there
relatives.
are. Yes, there are relatives.
Yeah, so definitely listen, you all that are watching this. You got to read both of these books, but um, I would say you got Out of the Box, and then the next book, it's really about the family that was left behind. And so, and I
Mhm.
didn't say the title because I want you to talk to us about the title of that second book. How did you settle on that? Where'd that come from?
Right. Title is For Love or Money. And everything that happens in that book seems to be for one of those.
Mm-hmm.
whether it's the drug dealing for money, or there are some murders involved that might be related to love, or the friendships, which is love. So everything that happens is either for love or money in that book.
And I was saying, because real life is very much like that, right?
Right?
Not always so concretely black and white, but um, I find your characters to be relatable, even though they are like, the druggies and everybody else,
Right.
but they're real. They come with all their flaws.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't
And
like
they
it,
have
that's your
them.
problem.
They definitely do have them.
They do have, and they own them. They
Yeah,
own
most
them
of them
in that
do.
book. Yeah, they definitely own them in that book. And so, um, let me see. We have another question. So William says, was there a time where you disagreed with the character's actions? Like if it had been real life, would you have lectured them? Or what would you have said to some of your characters when they made certain decisions? Oh, that's an
Um,
interesting question.
that is a good question. Um, with Adara, if I knew her and knew her in that situation she was in with Danny, I would have done everything in my power to get her out of there. Lane, honestly, I think he needed a boot to the butt years ago to get him moving and get things going in the right direction. And maybe they could have had more time of being happy.
Yeah.
Danny, yeah, that would be a person that honestly, I have a feeling I would have just had the ick from immediately and just stayed away from him entirely. Yeah, and honestly, out of all of them, everybody did their own thing, but I think Doug is the one who was actually the most stand up because he's the one that put everything in motion.
Yes.
Even though there was some bad stuff that came from it, he got them to see.
And I loved how he did it. So if you haven't read the book, another spoiler, but I loved how he did it, and I could picture that so much. Here's your box of letters, open it up. Yeah. I'm not going to say a word. Mic drop. Right. That was kind of how I saw that. And I loved it because, that's what a little brother would do, something like that for their brother. Right. And so very human, very, very humanized. I absolutely love that. Chris says, what was Lane's actual backstory, or is there one, on why he broke up with Adara? It has to be more than just the age thing. Am I wrong? That's what he says.
You're wrong. You're wrong. It was just the age thing. He felt like he had too much life experience already. And he could see that she had the ability to be more, to get out of that town. And he didn't want to be the one to hold her back from that. Even though she would have probably been perfectly happy staying there up on the mountain with him. But he was trying to think of her.
Well, too bad Danny didn't think of her. It's too bad Danny didn't think of her. And this is an interesting question. Okay, so Krista wants to know, she says, if you could bring one of your characters to life and meet them and actually talk to them, the character you created, which one would it be?
Oh.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Where are y'all getting these questions from? But they're good questions.
It would either be Adara or Lane. With Lane, I would probably like to talk to him and find out why he didn't come to his senses sooner, why it took his brother doing that, or was he just going to sit up on that mountain and be lonely and miserable for the rest of his life, And with her, I think I could sit around and have a few drinks with Adara and we'd be good buddies.
Totally. I really think that. I do. Hey, so Liz wants to know, will there ever be any explanation on where Adara's family, such as her parents, are? It wasn't very clear, but I still thought it was an amazing story.
I really didn't even think about that.
Right.
um, um, honestly, wow, I skipped a major thing there.
But you know what, though? I mean,
It
so
never
this
even
is,
occurred to me,
yeah,
because
this,
she might have some orphan issues, or they may just not be there. Or
yeah. And I did kind of wonder that as well, just a little bit, but the story just kind of flowed. And it made you
right,
have even more compassion for her. Like, oh, poor kid. Like, and like
yeah,
for me, I just used my imagination there. I was like, her parents must have been killed in an accident or something. Poor thing. And she's there with her aunt and her uncle and her cousin. That's all she has. Um, yeah, that was one of those. I just used my imagination, but so I
yeah,
guess you can have a variety.
I could come up with something and throw it in at some point. I really didn't
Yeah.
think of that.
Yeah. Um, okay. So this one, Josh says, this story seems almost timeless, like it could have occurred during any time period. Do you think that's true, or does it have to specifically be set in what seems to be the 80s, 90s, or early 2000s?
I think it probably could be timeless. I mean, there have always been jerks like Danny around,
Yeah.
and there have always been love triangles, or I don't even call that a triangle, but
No, that I don't know, but I don't know
um,
what we would call that.
but yeah, I mean, I think it could probably be just about at any time. It was a challenge actually writing without throwing in cell phones
Mm-hmm.
for the beginning part and stuff like that, because we're so immersed with the technology and everything right now.
Yes.
I mean, so much could have changed if they had had the technology when they were first getting together and stuff like that. But,
Yes.
it could have been an email instead of a whole box of letters. But,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which, of course, by that
Absolutely.
time they were there, but he had been writing the letters for all those years.
And
So, yeah,
I
I
thought,
think it could be a timeless, any time period type of story.
mm-hmm. And I thought that was so precious when he was writing her those letters for all the years. I said this is your soulmate. Go you should have gone to call on her. Just
Yeah.
like something. But so I rooted for them the whole way. Um, somebody who's this? Okay, so this is Josh again. So Josh says, um, which location in the book would you most like to visit and why? That's it.
um, Probably. See, I'm not even going to say like downtown or Main Street or anything. I'd have to say probably the end of the world.
Mm-hmm. I want to go there too. So if you haven't read the book, you got to read the book to get it. But um,
Mm.
yeah, I pictured the end of the world. So when I grew, because I grew up in Texas, and
Mhm.
we didn't call it the end of the world, but there was a place like that, and it was behind where my friend's dad had his cattle. And on the
Mhm.
other side of that was a place is what kind of seems like the end of the world. And, we'd go out there and pick up trucks and pillows and whatever. And,
Mhm.
but it just seemed so peaceful and stargazing and sleeping
Yeah.
outside. And it just got me in my emotions again. Right.
Well,
And
yeah.
mhm, yeah, it did. And we rooted for, that couple to be together and
Yeah.
stay together. And so, yeah, I think I would want to go to the end of the world. The mountains seem pretty fun too. Um,
Yeah.
Lane kind of was like, oh, it's just the mountain, but it just seemed as Adara said, it's home.
Right.
It was home. It was
She
welcoming.
always
It
felt
was,
that pull. Yeah.
hmm yeah, it was safe. It was fun.
Mhm.
All the things she didn't have with Danny is what,
Right.
it seemed to be. So I would, if I could get in my car and drive to Underbridge County just to have a visit, I would. But I
Yeah,
wouldn't go
that
anywhere
would-
near that preacher in book 2, though. I'd
yeah,
stay
no,
away from. I'd
yeah,
stay
he's
away
right
from
in
him.
town. He's right in town. You don't have to worry about him.
Yeah, no, we'd stay away from him. So, all right. So listen. So before we go, if anybody has any last second questions, send them to me now. But before we go, can you let people know how they can keep in touch with you?
I am on Facebook. I have an author page, S D McKoy. My name is also Susan McKoy on Facebook. You can go to my personal page or my author page. You can visit my website, which is constantly under construction because I never get around to doing it. But it is
I understand.
sdmckoy.com. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. I think I have a homepage set up on there. That's about it.
Mhm.
But you can reach me through Facebook at any time. I love to answer questions, talk about my books, and eventually we'll get around to a third book at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, I cannot wait personally for book 3 to come out. So please know I'll be the moment that comes out, and I already followed you on Facebook. So the moment that comes out, I will definitely be looking for that. So again, you know what? I want to say thank you. It's such a joy to talk to you and like meet you virtually. So thank you for,
Yeah.
some of the students on the chat here are saying thank you. Nice to meet you. So it really was. So listen, we wish you the best. You're in our thoughts and prayers. And I can't wait for the next book. So
Okay.
you take care.
Thank you.
And that's all I have tonight. And I will send you a copy of this. I'll send you a copy of it. You have
All right.
it.
Thank you
And
guys
again,
for having
thank you,
me.
everybody. Yep.